And hello everyone, welcome back to a new video. So today we'll be talking about math operations. We've lightly touched some of the operations you can do in the past, but never really went full out on all of them. So that's why I feel it's time we go through a bunch of them and just explain what they do. So I'm just going to have a button. I'm going to use a show message to basically display everything. Let's just make sure this displays in the middle somewhere of the screen. Anyways, so let's just double click on the button. We don't need to name it or anything. Now the first thing you want to do if you want to use math operations, we can actually just make that smaller, is you can go comma math here in the users clause, because this will import the math class, which in return will allow us to, let's just run this to make sure everything works, will allow us to use math operations like round, floor, seal, random range, stuff like that. So yeah, everything works. Now let's start with the first one. So we're going to use, we can create a few variables, variable I num for if we're going to use integers, so that's integer, and then R value, or R num instead, num, which is if we're going to use real. Okay, instead of a show message, we're just going to go here and start typing rich edit. Throw rich edit on here and we can just display everything inside of rich edit. Alright, so now here we have a rich edit called red display, and we're going to display all of our things in there instead, because that will just make our life easier. So let's go and just go red display .lines.add, and we can just start adding things here. So the first thing we want to do is, because we are going to be returning integers with the round function, so we want to go int to string. Now we want to add round, and then we want to add a number in here. Now what the round function does is it basically rounds any number for you. So let's say 5.6 would turn into 6, 5.4 that would turn into 5, and so on. So let's go 5.6, and then we can use this a couple of times, CVVVV, to show you just the difference. Then 5.4, then negative 2.1, and then like 9.9 or 9.0. Then I can show you all what happens. So if we run this and we press the button, 6, 5, negative 2, 9. 5.6, that has to go to 6, because if you remember normal math, as soon as you get to 5 you just round up, because if you're going to walk halfway to the supermarket and then you're like, okay, no, I don't want to go to the supermarket anymore, or you have a choice to go back home to the supermarket, you're already halfway to the supermarket, so why turn around now, you know? So that's, so 5 and up, that goes up. So 5.6, that's 6, 5.4, that's 5, 2.1, that's negative 2, or negative 2.1, 9, that's just 9. And it returns a normal integer, so this can be a double that goes in there, a real. And then we have another function, so we can go off here, or actually we can do that. Now this function right here is called trunc. Now what trunc does, it removes the decimal values. So let's say we have 5.5. Trunc will make so it is 5. Or if we have 6.1, trunc will make that it's 6. So we can just go like 5.9, and then we can just like delete this. I can copy this, CVVVV, and then we can go 8.1, negative 3.4, 2.0. And if we run this, as you can see, 5, 8, negative 3, 2. 5.9, that turns into 5. 8.1, that turns into 8. 3.4, negative 3.4, that turns into negative 3, and then 2.0, that turns into 2. So it just removes this right here and makes sure that this is an integer. And then on the other side of this spectrum right here, we have something that does the opposite of trunc. And that something is called frac. Now what frac is going to do is, let's say we have 19.8. Then it's going to return 0.8. Unlike trunc, which would return the number, this returns the real value only, the decimals. So we can go 8.92, and we can actually copy this CVVVV 2.12, negative 2.2, 1.00. Let's run this. Oh wait, sorry, this has to turn into float to string, because now we're returning a real instead of an integer, because this return is 0 point something. Now if we click this button, 0.92, if we drag this here, 8.92, 0.92, 2.12, 0.12, negative 2.2, just negative 0.2, and then 1.00, that automatically just returns 0 because that's the decimal, so yeah. Then here's something that we most likely will use in a lot of situations, and we can just go back to into string again. Into string. This is called ceil. Ceil. Now what ceil will do is it will round everything up. So math dot round, or round will round it to whichever is closest. Ceil, on the other hand, no matter if it's 8.1, it's going to round it up to 9. If it's 9.1, if it's 9.9, it's going to round it up to 10. So it's always going to round up. It's never going to round down. So let's go 9.1 and see where that takes us. So CVVVV, and if we go here and we say 2.8, negative 2.1, and maybe 98.4. Now let's see what they return. Click the button, and as you can see, it returned as we thought. Jeez. Okay, so there's 9.1, that went to 10, 2.8, that went to 3, negative 2.1, that went to negative 2. Why negative 2, you ask? That's because it rounds up. Negative 2 is bigger than negative 3. Just like 0 is bigger than negative 1. But 1 is bigger than 0. So yeah. And then you have going up to 99. Okay, so next up, we have the opposite of ceil. We have floor. Now you might see a something here that kind of looks familiar, right? Ceil, ceiling, so it goes up, the ceiling is up. Floor, that's down. The floor is below you, so it goes downwards. So floor is going to do the exact opposite of ceil. So if we click this, it's 9 to negative 3 this time, because 3 is smaller than 2, negative 2, and then 98, so it rounds down. So that's enough of rounding and stuff like that. We don't need that anymore. So now we can just delete all of that. Now we can get to the real mathematical stuff, and we can maybe use format instead. I think it's float to string. Most of these will most likely return floating point values. So here we have a value. Here we have a function called squirt. Now what will squirt do? Squirt stands for square root, and it will get the square root of something. So let's put 25 here, and if I'm correct, the square root of 25 is 5, because 5 times 5 is 25. That's about all I know when it comes to square root, so I'm just going to put 2 here because Or we can actually add more of them, because now I think about it, it's easier. So 2 times 2, that's 4. 4 times 4, that is 16. And then we can go 10 times 10, that's 100. Okay, so we took a few very basic numbers here. And we show them their rooted value, their square rooted value, as you can see, is 5, because 5 times 5 is 25. Then you have your 2, because 2 times 2 is 4, 16, 4, and 10. So yeah, that's square root for you. Then next up, we have not square root, but square. Now this is basically the opposite of square root. So if I'm going to put 5 here and I say square, this is going to give me 25. This is a lot easier because now I can, like, 3 will give us 3 times 3, and then we can go 10, that will give us 100, and then here we can go, we put another number here like 70 or something. So we click this, 25, 9, 100, 4,900. So as you can see, this gives you to the power of 2, to the power. Now, sometimes, just sometimes, you want to do something stronger than just square root, times 2, or times the same number once, sometimes you want to do it like, let's say, 3 times. In that case, you have something called power. And let's just delete all of this, because that's going to get in the way right now. Now let's say you want to do this, because normal squaring will just do this, 5,2. So 5 times 5. So yeah, there's doing 2 5s. That will literally translate into 5 times 5. And if you add a 3 there, it will translate into 5 times 5 times 5. So yeah, it puts it to the power of whatever you put in there. So let's try this out with a few things. Let's go C, B, 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 and then we can go like 2 to the power of 5, and 10 to the power of 2, and then let's say 5 to the power of 4 this time. Okay, and if we click the button, as you can see, it does return the valid values. 125, 100, 625, 32. So yeah, that's if you want to use something stronger than just squaring a number. Next up, we have absolute. Or in this case, we can go ABS. Now this can return either integer or a real, if I'm not mistaken. So you can either use into string or for floating string. I'm going to say floating string because that's the easiest way to get everything to work. Now what absolute does, it returns the absolute value of something. Now you don't really see this too often actually, but usually you get a number like, let's say, -5, and the absolute number of -5 is 5. Same here, -2.3. The absolute number of -2.3, that's 2.3. So basically the absolute value is just the positive version of the number. So yeah, so we can go like -23, and we can just copy this, C, V, 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 and we can go like -3.29. Then you can go give it a positive number, let's make this 9, and then maybe 23.24. Then if we run this, we click the button, as you can see, everything is now positive. Then next we have pi. We all know what pi is. It's like 3.14159 and whatever comes after that. So basically we can just go and say pi, and it will literally give us pi. I don't know until where, but it will give us pi, and then we can like go pi times 2, or pi divided by 2, or 2 times pi. We can actually make this a bit bigger. Then we can go is it pi squared? Is pi the one that gets squared? I do think so. SQR, we can square pi it in, and then we can find out the thing of a circle. I have no idea what this is, but it does something to a circle. And then basically we just click the button, and as you can see, it gives you the pi. So 3.141592653 and so on and so forth. There's pi times 2, there's pi divided by 2, and there's, I think, a radius, and then a radius. Is it a radius? Circumference? I have no idea. This is something of a circle, but I can't remember. Okay, and then next up we have random. Now let's say you need to get a random number. So then we can go random, and we can say, let's say for example 10. And what that will do is that will give us a random number between 0 and 9. So if we just click run, and we have to create the variable I, and as you can see here, it gives a bunch of random values from 0 to 9, but not 10, because it does not go up to 10. It goes from 0 to the number you give it minus 1. So it wouldn't be 10, it would be up to 9, from 0 to 9. And if you want a random number between 0 and 1, you can just do that, random. Then we have another one. Now let's say you like to not like add to your number, you want it to give you between a certain two specific numbers. So then you have random range. So a random number between two numbers. We've talked about this one in the past, and now we're just going to see it again. So if we go between 1 and 100, it will return everything from 1 to 99, or 1 to 9. So let's run this. Click on the button, everything from 1 to 9. Click the button again, 1 to 9. So it does the same thing, but you can give it a minimum and a maximum value. And yeah, and if you want to make it more random, because sometimes the values you get is not completely random. You know, sometimes they're repetitive, and you can kind of see a little pattern in them. So what you can do then is you can just go randomize. What randomize will do is it will make sure that whenever you get a number, it will randomize it more. So it wouldn't, follow a specific pattern or something like that. It will be something new each and every time. Alright, so next we have a few extra mathematical functions which I found to be quite useful in times that you don't really want to type a lot. So the first one I want to talk about is, why did I delete everything? Okay, so the first one I want to talk about is, let's go and let's give you guys an actual example. So let's go while I is less than 10, begin, and let's just make I equal to 1, becomes 1, and then right here at the end press Ctrl D. Now let's say we want to run through everything, so we can go display.lines.add and then int to string, and we can put an I there. Now what you can do is okay, I see. Now what you can do is, firstly you can either go I plus, or I becomes I plus 1. Now I find this to be rather tedious, because why? Just why? So something you can do is that the equivalent of that is you can go inc and then just put your I there. Now that will increase I by 1 each time the loop runs. So instead of you having to type out that entire sentence in code, you can just literally do that. And if you go I, 2, it will count by 2 instead of 1. 1, 3, 5, as you can see. And of course if you go 3 it will count by 3 instead of 2, and 4, 4, and 5, 5. It continues like that. So yeah, basically going I, 2, that will be the equivalent of I plus 2. Now also, the opposite of ink would be dick. Now it does the same thing. So let's just, while I is more than 10, let's make I something like 20 then. It does the same, it does the opposite of ink. So it goes, I becomes I minus 1. So if we click this button right here, see 20, 19, 18 until it gets to 11. Because it's the equivalent of saying I becomes I minus 1. Minus 1. And of course if you go there, comma, let's say 3 this time, that's I minus 3. So if we run this again, (20, 70, 14, 11). So yeah, that's all I have for this video, all the mathematical functions I wanted to talk about. Hope you all learned something new this time, and thank you all for watching. Hope you all can do some better math now, and see you all in the next video.